for your intro song to end.
Yeah, I'm really jamming to this. So.
But just go ahead and let the vendor you're ready to go.
All right, hello everyone. We are the Inwerken team, and we were tasked with working on a maintenance cockpit in the MyCannageeser portal. My name is Connor Fradenberg.
I'm Derek Boonstra.
I'm Tanner Olson.
And I'm Victor Oda. We'll begin by examining our sponsor, Inwerken. Inwerken is a company located in Germany. They generally deal with business software development and consulting. They're an official SAP partner, and they have many large clients around the world, such as Volkswagen and Adidas. Inwerken was contracted by Cannageeser to develop software, as with much of their work. Cannageeser are a leader in industrial laundry technology. They have customers in 51 countries all over the world, and currently they are Inwerken's project customer. Cannageeser was interested in a portal or a prototype for a new customer portal that is subject to further change. The new features that were needed in this portal were a maintenance cockpit where users can perform maintenance tasks or activities on their machine, detailed views for both orders and machines, and the ability to filter or search items in views. The solution by which this would be done would be to provide a easy-to-use interface with streamlined navigation. There would be two distinct views in the maintenance cockpit. The first of which would be the order view, which customers can view their orders. They can view details regarding machines in the orders, and they can view tutorials and information on their machines. And the second view, which is very similar, would be the machine view, and the customers can view their machines and what orders are attached to the machine, and they can perform maintenance tasks on these same machines, in addition to be able to filter/search through a list of them. Tanner will now discuss our project scheduling.
As Victor was saying, we were working with the team in Germany, Inwerken, Maxim Reagan and Bastian Bachmann, and we had our weekly Skype meetings at 8 a.m. our time, when it was 3 p.m. over there. About halfway through the semester, we decided that just having a weekly meeting wasn't sufficient. We wanted to streamline our communications, so we set up a Slack server, and that smoothed things out very nicely. We were working in parallel. We had the front-end web UI to work with, and they worked on the database backend. Throughout the semester, we started out working on a tutorial to get familiar with the environments. We set up all sorts of different views that were required, and towards the end of the semester, we worked on some nice-to-haves, such as the feedback page and the maintenance video viewport. Sprint 1, we developed user stories, got familiar with each other, introduced ourselves. We set up the project specification document and learned with the SAP UI 5 tutorial, which taught us quite a bit that we used. We began working with the BuildMe. It's a rapid prototyping website specifically for UI5, and it was very nice to work with. But during Sprint 2, we wanted to get off of that and actually work with the web IDE provided for us. With Sprint 2, we also implemented some mock data for the midterm. Sprint 3, we implemented an actual database connection. We worked mainly on the web IDE, and that went pretty good. Sprint 4, which is recently, we worked on implementing additional views and setting up routing between them. Progress so far, we've got a login page that allows us to access the maintenance cockpit, which splits there between the machine view and the order view. They both display master lists they have test data that's interactable, and all the order and machine information is displayed. Connor will talk about that in a moment, but we also had some additional views. I started with the feedback page. We added a button to each page to route there, and just due to lack of time, it lacks interaction with the database. And then Derek worked on the video page. Do you want to talk about that?
The videos were transcribed in both English and German, but we had some issues getting the MP4 to display in XML.
And now Connor will show you quite a bit of our project through our demo.
All right, so for our demo, we decided to do pictures instead of a live demo because we were working with the SAP Web IDE, and to kind of run the website with the mock data, we would have to run it through that. There's kind of be some issues with that possibly. So just using some pictures. The first thing that it takes you to is a login page. Now originally we wanted to have 2 different users that would have access to different data, but unfortunately we weren't able to really implement that with the data that we had, so we just forgot about that. And so for right now with the login page, you can enter anything because validation wasn't too important for us. And after you enter in a username and a password, you click the login button and it brings you directly to the maintenance cockpit, which is right here. And with the maintenance cockpit, there are 2 different buttons. One on the left has a button to go to the machine view, and one on the right is to the order view. Now both of these buttons display how many machines or orders there are. So for us, with our data, we have 715 machines and 12 orders. Now I know it's a little bit hard to see, but underneath that number, there's a thing that says the critical section, so there'll be any critical orders or maintenance that needs to be done. Now one issue that we had that I'll talk about a little bit later is Canagieser didn't actually give Inwerken or us access to their database, so Inwerken had to create the data themselves, and because of this, some properties that we thought would be in it weren't actually in it, so this is more just showing what could be done. Now once you click on either of these buttons, they will take you to their respective views, so we're going to start out by checking out the machine view. So with the machine view, on the left there's a list that displays all the machines, and this shows the description of the machine and the number. Now as I said before, Inwerken had to create this data, so a lot of it's similar with just a little bit changed. At the top of the list there are 2 buttons, one titled Goods Recipient and one titled Filter. The Goods Recipient button would change the location of the machines that would show to the user, and the filter would just filter through. Now unfortunately, with the way that our data was set up, neither of these buttons were working. There's also a live change search bar, so the user can enter in anything with relation to the equipment number or the description, and it'll change based on what they entered. So for example, if the user enters in the numbers 0026, then they will be shown that only one machine fits that, and that is the workflow machine. Now after the user clicks on the list, the item in the list, then they will be shown a detail view that goes more in depth about the machine. So at the header, it has the description name, equipment number, construction year, and how long the warranty will last. And the rest of the page just has any orders that a machine may have with it. And the orders will show the description, equipment number that is, or the order number that the order is for, and what date it is due on. And at the bottom of the machine list, there's a button so you can switch to the order view for seamless navigation throughout the pages. So we're just going to pretend that we clicked on that, and it's going to bring us to the order view. Now the order view is very similar to the machine view because we wanted to make this as easy as possible for a user so they don't have to learn a bunch of different things and they can tell what to do rather easily. So this list will display any orders and some data about the orders. It shows the order number, description, the due date for the order, and what equipment number the order is for. There's also the same buttons, but unfortunately those don't work either, and a live change search bar. So I'll show you a little bit more with the search bar. For example, on the left, it shows that the user entered in the word drive, and it comes up with the orders for clean, check, and tighten the drive belt, and change the drive belt. And on the right, the user entered in the word vent, and they were shown orders for clean ventilators and suction shaft, and check cylinder, ventils, and pipelines. Now again, similar to the machine view, once somebody clicks on an order, they are given more information about that selected order. It again just shows the order number, description, equipment number, and what date the order is due on. And then the rest of the page shows any maintenance steps that a user must take to complete the order. So with these maintenance steps, it shows the code for the maintenance, what equipment number the maintenance step is linked to, and a description of that maintenance order. On the right side, there are little check marks for done, but again, due to issues with the data, there wasn't any actual property for a done maintenance order, so that's more just to show what can be done. Now I'm going to talk a little bit more about the user story points. So with this graph, the purple line shows all of our user story points, including the nice to have. The red are the required story points, and the black are the story points that we completed. Now, as you can see, we completed all of our required story points and worked on some nice to have. But you can tell that at about day 60, we realized something was horribly wrong, and the progress that we thought we made, we didn't actually make. And this was due to the way that we had to implement the data. We thought we were implementing it one way, but instead we had to create a mock server and do kind of some stuff with that. Thankfully, we were able to get that figured out and then move on to work on some nice to haves. Now, a lot of the nice to haves weren't fully completed, but more prototypes of what we could do. For example, a video page that Derek will be talking about in a little bit. But that's about how our user stories went. Now I'm going to talk a little bit more about some of the issues and risks that we faced. One of the biggest issues with this project was that there were 3 parties involved. It wasn't just NDSU and Inwerken, but also the Cannageeser company. Now, Inwerken worked directly with Cannageeser, and there just seemed to be a lack of information from Cannageeser to Inwerken. So of course there was a lack of information from Inwerken to us that kind of made it hard for us to understand exactly what we needed to do for the project. In addition, as I've been mentioning, we never got access to the Cannageeser database, so we didn't know exactly what different properties there would be, and instead we just had to work off of the metadata and database that Inwerken created for us. Now, another large issue that we had was the time difference between our 2 teams. As we stated before, we would have our Skype meetings at about 8 a.m. for us and 3 p.m. for them. But one of our biggest problems was that a lot of times when we would be working, which was either in the evenings or on the weekends, that's when they would be asleep. So obviously if we have a problem and we can't move on without fixing that, we would have to ask a question, and we didn't expect them to answer it right away. So we would have to kind of stop all progress for the night and wait until the next day to figure out our problem. Working with the build.me, it was nice to start with to kind of design the UI, but after we moved off, we kind of realized that we relied on it too much and we should have moved off of it much sooner than before, because it built a lot of the stuff, but it built it incorrectly. For example, when we created our mock server, once we got it from the build.me, there was 1,000 lines of code, when in reality we only needed about 30. So that was just kind of confusion due to that. Another issue that we had was the Web IDE and the SAP UI5 are rather new technology, so there's not a lot of information about it. If you have any problems with it, you might get 2 or 3 results that don't directly correlate to it, so you have to kind of figure out what exactly the problem is and how to fix it. This was a problem with the video tutorial and feedback implementation that we had, and a very large problem with displaying the mock data, and finally the routing issues. Routing to different pages was another issue, because we found that we had to combine everything together more so to route it, so that kind of took a lot of time. And the last risk, I'll let Derek talk about since he knows a little bit more about the video implementation.
Some issues with the video implementation is XML doesn't support videos, so you have to contain it in an HTML block. And we were facing some issues with that because we had tried to put it in panels or pop-up windows, and it was still reading it as XML data, which would just end up breaking our code. And so we tried to just display it as the HTML code, and then moving it into the Web ID as well. The files were actually too large and the Web ID wouldn't take them, so that was another issue we faced. Moving into the postmortem, what we learned was working with an international team seemed very beneficial. As we move on after graduation, we'll be put into many teams, and I don't think we'll run into any more difficulties than we faced working with a team across the world. Also, XML and SAP UI5 were new to all of us at the start of the semester, so we had to go through a lot of tutorials and documentation to begin the semester to start working with this stuff. What went well was we completed all of our must-haves, and they all are bug-free. Everything works on the web page from the required stuff. And then what went wrong was implementing the mock data took a lot longer than expected, Inwerken had to wait on Canagieser for some of the data, and then they ended up just creating it themselves, which ended up taking a while. And then our nice to haves and the views took a lot longer than expected, and the time constraints made it so we weren't able to finish all of the nice to haves that we wanted to. Some of the next steps for our project would be to finish the nice to haves, the video implementation, and the feedback section. Also, adding multiple users to the login page would, so then users could have specific orders assigned to them in the cockpit. Also, Inwerken will go to Canagieser to present the prototype. They'll get input and feedback from them on what they should add and take away from the prototype. Also, develop a portal based off the input from Canagieser. If Canagieser likes the prototype and it is successful, it will be implemented into Canagieser's live servers, and that does not currently have a maintenance portal, so it would be a good addition to their cockpit.
And that's about it. Does anybody have any questions?
Have you looked at this on multiple browsers?
Yeah, it works on Google Chrome, Firefox. We didn't really check Internet Explorer too much because it's Internet Explorer, but Google Chrome and Firefox works within the SAP Web IDE. All right, thank you.
Thank you.